everybody, and welcome to episode number 3 of On the Flank. I'm one of your hosts, John George, alongside Joe Kirkpatrick. Say hello, Joe.
Hello, everybody.
And
We're recording a little early this week because of Labor Day, so I assume this is probably going to come out Sunday night, right?
yes, this will be coming out Sunday night. It's a little treat for you guys. You guys get Labor day off work, day off school, and you also get to listen to our beautiful voices.
There you go.
Of course, when it comes to analysis, we are on the flank. That's our little catchphrase that makes no sense whatsoever. But this week, if you can't tell, obviously it is podcast, so it is only in audio form. But both me and Joe currently on our faces have the eyes emojis happening. As everyone in the Overwatch universe knows, everyone's tweeting out those eyes. Everyone's got the eyes going on right now. Last year it was the owl. This year's the eyes.
It's just a matter of what happens after that.
Yep, it does. Lots of news. Lots of roster news that came on Friday mostly. Some yesterday as well, Saturday. We have lots of roster news, some Overwatch League expansion rumors news, which is exciting. Some things that came out of left field I didn't expect whatsoever, and I know you didn't either.
Yeah.
But that's a little bit later in the show. Of course, we always start out by going over the actual games of Overwatch, the actual competitions that are happening. Of course, right now, Overwatch League is over, unfortunately. First season is done. We had our All-Star weekend last season, so all we've got left to talk about is World Cup and Contenders. Contenders Season 2. Bunch of finals are happening right now. Of course, North American Finals, we'll preview that. That's happening this week. But this weekend, yesterday actually, the 1st of September, were the Australian Finals. Both of us, we both did not watch this too well, but we do know the results, so we'll skim over it a little bit, right? Drop Bears ended up beating Dark-Sided in the finals, and I think the biggest thing to note on the Drop Bears is one of their players heading over to Toronto Esports, right? That is the Boston Uprising's Contenders team. What's his name? Color Hacks is his name. Yes, which is a pretty big move. Which could mean we could see a new Australian in the league. Custa has a little friend.
There you go.
But yeah, that's a pretty big move in itself because we know North American Contenders has a lot more going for it than Australia. It's definitely a step further towards Overwatch League, because if you get put on a roster like Toronto Esports, you're basically one step closer to being into Overwatch League, as you're a minor league team for the Boston Uprising at that point. Boston can sign you pretty easily. So that's pretty exciting. I know. Do you have any thoughts on the Australian Finals? I know we both didn't really pay attention to it too much.
Yeah, I guess the one thing I'd say about it, which I find kind of odd, that I didn't watch Australian Finals, but even this morning going back and trying to figure out how it went, the Overwatch Contenders website doesn't include any results even from semifinals of the Australian playoffs, let alone who was in the finals, which I thought was interesting that that wouldn't have been updated. Several of the other regions have been, though. So I thought that was odd. For whatever reason, that wasn't there. So yeah, I had to do a bit of digging, try to figure out even the very basic details of how that match went down. But yeah, I might go back and watch it later, scratch a competitive Overwatch itch while we've got here.
Yeah, I might watch it too. Got nothing to do until this weekend. So I do have to admit, if you take a look at the Australian teams, their team logos are so Australian, unapologetically Australian. You have a kangaroo mascot. You've got, of course, the Drop Bears have that koala bear mascot. I mean, they're just all so Australian, and I love it. But yeah, we'll probably both head back onto that. In other Contenders news, I guess, the South American finals are actually tonight, are in 3 hours, almost 4 hours from now. Brazil Gaming House is in that one, of course. They've been known as like the South American team since Overwatch began, and I think, yep, there are 6 Brazil Gaming House players on Brazil's World Cup roster once again. So um, that's just a little preview of the World Cup if you want to check that out tonight. What else we got? We got previews, I guess now. Yeah,
Yeah.
previews. So we'll go in the order of the days they're going to happen in. Of course, it all starts on Friday. Uh, both, I guess the U.S. World Cup technically does start before. Are they having contenders finals LAN after U.S. group stage
I don't know. Let me check here,
on
guys. Let me
Friday?
check here
Yeah,
because they
let me
have the
go
schedule
check.
posted. I think it'll start. This says 9:45 p.m. Eastern on Friday the 7th. So that's what 6:45 Pacific.
Yeah,
Um, so yeah, that'll be after
yeah, that's right
oh,
after.
oh, almost after play is completed on that day
Yeah,
because it'll go till like 11, I think, on Friday for the World Cup.
uh, yeah. So the World Cup.
11 Eastern.
Okay, yeah, World Cup. Yeah, okay, so that'll be on at like the same time. Okay, so we'll just go into NA finals first, even though World Cup does start a little earlier. It starts at like 1 Eastern, 10 Pacific time is when it starts on Friday. But we'll start with Contenders NA finals, which is of course Fusion University versus New York XL2, the XL Academy. So obviously, if you didn't notice, both of these teams are Overwatch League affiliates. Fusion, of course, Philadelphia Fusion, and XL2, New York XL. A little fun fact that I was talking about with Joe before this started: the XL2 and Fusion University have actually never played against each other in the 2 seasons so far. They both have been in different groups in season 1 and season 2. So they never played in the regular season, and then last season, of course, XL2 didn't make the championship, so they couldn't play Fusion. So this is the first time we'll see these two teams head to head against each other. Of course, if you've been paying attention to Contenders North America, you know Fusion University has yet to lose a game in these 2 seasons. Is this the first time that happens, Joe?
I mean, me, I'm gonna have to say no. As a Fusion fan, but I mean, certainly this is gonna be a really good match to watch. We've got lots of big names on the XL2 squad. Nanohana, of course, formerly Flower. If
Mm-hmm.
you saw him in the 2017 Overwatch World Cup. Also Mangachu, now coming back, I think, for his second season on Team Canada. Wu Yal, of course, formerly of the London Spitfire. Anyways, really big names there on XL2. It's going to be a good match for sure, no matter which way it goes. I expect to see some Fusion University players hopefully picked up for Overwatch League Season 2 as well. So they'll take this opportunity to show off, I guess, in this match.
Oh yeah, a lot of the Philadelphia Fusion probably love that the Fusion University has gone undefeated. I don't think they care if they take those good players and cause Fusion University to be a little bit worse. But yeah, New York XL2 is undefeated this season as well. So it is going to be a matchup of the two best teams, which we all love, of course. And XL2 does have a lot of talent on their team. Even their support, Adam, he was on the U.S. roster, U.S. World Cup roster last year, and I think he totally is one of the best supports, and he's probably one of the best Mercy players. So I was shocked when he wasn't in Overwatch League last year. Um, and then they also, one of their tank players, Tizzy, he was also on London Spitfire. That little known fact, he
It's
was
true.
briefly on London Spitfire. So you've got a lot of talent over there on XL2, but Fusion, none of them were in the Overwatch League previously, but you just have some raw like contenders talent there that you know they all these players could possibly be in Overwatch League um,
Without a
next
doubt, yeah.
next season, honestly, because if we're adding 6 teams or 8 teams now or whatever whatever the amount is going to be, these rosters need some people, and if Philadelphia doesn't snag these players, there's a good chance that they get snagged by one of these 8 expansion teams. Um,
That definitely, yeah. I think notably, Who Are You apparently is underage. I didn't realize that, but I learned that today. So he actually won't be eligible for season two. But I think definitely, he's one of their biggest names, obviously on TPS. But even with Zachary together, a really good duo, and hopefully really good, really promising individuals for
yeah,
the upcoming seasons.
yeah. So Zachary could not play last year. His birthday's in January, but he will be eligible for this year. He's going to be turning 18. The Fusion University have a pretty underage roster. Both Alarm and Who Are You are both going to be 17 throughout the entire Overwatch League season 2, it seems. So neither of them can be picked up, but everyone else is eligible on their team to be picked up to Philadelphia, and then if Philadelphia chooses not to anybody. So if you're a huge Overwatch League fan, watch this game because there's a bunch of talent they're probably going to be in the Overwatch League next season, whether it's on New York XL or the Philadelphia Fusion or any of the expansion teams or any team, really. But as far as predictions go, I as well believe Fusion University is going to win this game. I think they just have raw talent that hasn't really that's been together for these 2 seasons pretty much and has just run over everybody. They haven't gotten to face XL2 yet, though, so this could be a really interesting matchup. Anything else to say on the NA contenders?
Nothing comes to mind other than yeah, I'll definitely be watching
It should
on
be a really good one.
Friday night.
Yep, Friday
Again,
night.
again, that's let me see. That's 9:45 p.m. Eastern, which is 6:45 Pacific.
Yep, and what Overwatch World Cup game would you miss if you slipped on out? Possibly the Austria United States match. Ooh, that's a big one. And Norway Brazil. Yikes. World Cup. Let's talk about World Cup. I joke here because I don't find this group to be that impressive. As far as the bottom 3 go, in my opinion, when you take a look at these teams, who stands out? Who are you interested in watching? Who do you think is at the bottom of this table as well?
Well, yeah, I mean, pretty obviously we've got likely our 2 BlizzCon finalists already just from looking to be Team Canada and Team USA. Obviously, full, almost full of Overwatch League players. Lots of good competitive experience. Just from both teams, it's going to be really really exciting to watch them play each other, which will be, let's see, looks like last game of the weekend, yeah,
Yep.
on Sunday night. But yeah, watching them play each other is gonna be great. We've seen really great things out of both of them. Yeah, so definitely overall the group stage is gonna go to Canada and the United States for sure. Beyond that, I don't know. It's gonna be interesting to see. We've got Austria, Brazil, Switzerland, Norway, trying to see the way they can sort of come out over each other to see if it is nice and clean like it was in the Korea stage, or if we get some ties, which I guess might be cool. Um, but yeah, let's have to see what happens.
Yeah. As far as looking at the rosters go and looking at like last year's results, Austria did pretty terribly last go around. They got last in their group. Norway didn't do too well. Of course, they've got some last night's leftovers players on their teams, which is an NA contenders team. Are just in Ducat and Michael. And then Switzerland was not in the World Cup last year, so they should be an interesting team to watch. Most of their roster is made up of players on Silent Gaming, something I've never heard of. And then Brazil, Brazil is, I think, the third best team here. They've got like a team that's just been together for a long time, and they're known as the best South American team. But I really don't know if they can challenge either United States or Canada. There's just not too much to talk about with this group besides who's going to get third, which doesn't really matter in the end because Canada's got all. Honestly, they've got all Overwatch League talents. Mangachu's XQC is of course not on an Overwatch League team, but he probably deserves to be. Mangachu is on XL2, but he'll probably be in Overwatch League next year. And then Zachary on the United States and Fusion University, but he was too young last year. He's probably also going to be Overwatch League. So United States, Canada, I just don't see them either of them being beat. And the game that everybody's going to be looking towards is that Sunday night matchup, USA Canada. Anything? Could we see any surprises? Possibly, maybe from Norway. They also have like Onigod, who's a recognizable name.
This stage, yeah, I'm not convinced for this particular group stage. But who knows? We can we can see what happens. But yeah, I would be surprised if anything other than that ended up
Yeah,
happening.
I mean it's in Los Angeles. I believe it's at Blizzard Arena where Overwatch League was. So I'm interested to see like we've only seen that LED screen decked out with like Overwatch League teams. So I'm interested to see how it looks with like United States, Canada on there and stuff like that. And I suspect since it's in LA, it's going to be filled with a lot more Overwatch League talent than it was as before as far as the broadcast goes. They haven't announced anything quite yet, but that'll be interesting to see as well. I wonder how much if they have a lot less contenders talent and a lot more Overwatch League talent this time around.
It's true, yeah.
So that'll be interesting to watch. I'm excited to just see more Overwatch, even though it might not necessarily be good Overwatch. And United States Canada will be a fun one to watch. Of course,
At
everyone
this
are.
point,
Go ahead.
at this point, we have to take what we can get, right?
Yeah, exactly. Last year, I mean, there's hype around this match too. Last year they had like a little show match that I actually went to, and there were some issues with Canada's computers or something like that, and then there's big arguments last year about which team was better because U.S. had that terrible draw against South Korea in the first round, of course, and Canada
Yeah.
ended up going to the finals. They arguably had the easier side of the bracket, though. So there was argument about which team was really better last year as well. So it's going to be a hype matchup, and we get to see XQC on stage again. So always fun. As far as events go, that's really all we got though. But those
Yeah.
that's should be an exciting weekend. I'm honestly looking more forward to the Contenders NA finals. That should be fun, and then USA Canada.
Yeah.
But
And times for that's going to be Friday, Saturday, Sunday of this weekend, 7th, 8th, and 9th, starting at 10 Pacific, 1 Eastern. 5 matches in a row.
yep, just straight up 5 matches in a row each day. Should be fun. A nice early day every day too. One starts one every day. So, and if you're
Yeah,
on,
Korean stage was rough in America.
oh yeah, finally don't have to stay up all night. News. This is the big part of the show today, and the big part of any off-season show is the news, of course.
And there's a lot of it.
Oh yeah, we got a lot of rosters announcing. Like we said last week, we predicted that the rosters would be announcing who they're dropping, and I believe you can just imply that if a player isn't mentioned in these press releases or tweets, then they are staying on that roster for next season because they have been re-signed or optioned for a second season. So yeah, we're pretty much assuming anyone who isn't mentioned in these big dropped tweets is probably still on their roster. Let's start with a tweet that I don't think implies the rest of the roster is
Safe.
is safe. Is Soul Dynasty's Gambler retiring? Because I believe this is a lot more like Gambler's kind of copying Siegel, which is kind of weird. But he's just retiring to become a professional streamer. So I don't think this was Soul's big, here's the players we dropped tweet. I think this was just, okay, here's Gambler's announcement. He's retiring as an active player. Thoughts on this? Is it going to impact Soul Dynasty that much?
Not significantly, no. Like you said, I think they are going to make some more changes probably to their roster here before the deadline. But yeah, no, this is probably just sort of a side thing that they wanted to get out while they're still working out their details for season 2.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Gambler, not too significant of a player for Soul Dynasty. Of course, he was mostly on that bench, so it's not that big of a deal for Soul, and it's probably a good choice for Gambler at this point to just start streaming. Next, we're going through these quick here. Wizard Hyung, of course, you know this. He was coach for New York XL. I'll always remember this. Before the New York XL Philadelphia Fusion playoff series, this video Overwatch League had on this man that was basically just, it was like Wizard had watched Moneyball once and then had decided he was Billy Bean. It was amazing. Moneyball is one of my favorite movies ever. So I had always wondered, like, God, when are we gonna get like a Moneyball of the Overwatch League? Who's gonna like do that? And Moneyball, if you don't know, Billy Bean he's the general manager of the Oakland Athletics, a baseball team. And in the general manager position, you have a lot more ability to deal with money and like who you're going to sign and stuff like that. Wizard is in a coaching position, which is not really related to Moneyball whatsoever. So I thought it was very interesting that he was just like coming out and he's like, I'm manipulating all these stats and all this stuff. And I was like, well, wasn't it like Billy Bean manipulating stats and money? Because he was like figuring out how to sign people for the least amount of money while getting the most value out of them. And it was very confusing to me. I'll always remember Wizard as the Moneyball man, but he has left New York XL to get to the news, straight to it. What are your thoughts on him leaving New York XL?
Yeah, it makes me wonder, I guess, if it was more of his decision or if that was a team decision. But we do know that he tweeted, less than 24 hours later, is no longer looking for a team, so clearly he's in high demand. He coached the best regular season team of the league by far last season. It'll just be interesting to see. Once the announcement comes, which team he's ended up with. I would assume it's probably an expansion team. Otherwise, we probably would have heard
Team?
by now. Which of the original 12 that he's joined. But yeah, that information will come out, I guess, here in the next few days.
Yeah, there's someone tweeted that there was some rumor that he was going to sign with that alleged Busan expansion team. So maybe that possibly happened. But yeah, in New York XL's tweet, it actually says this was a mutual decision, which is always
I was looking at that while I was talking.
Which is always, I don't know, that's like when you're in a relationship and it ends and you say it's a mutual decision. That makes it feel like it just makes it feel like New York XL got broken up with here.
It doesn't put blame on one party or the other.
Yeah,
intentionally.
Exactly. It's like a PR term kind of. Someone definitely made the decision, and I believe it was Wizard. I believe he wanted to leave for some reason. But as Joe said, he's no longer looking for team. Possibly that Busan expansion team. We're going to talk more about expansion teams later. We have some weird rumors to talk about later. Dallas, of course, we talked about this. Hastro tweeted something last week that we mentioned on the podcast last week, basically teasing information this week for Dallas Fuel. And then the only information Dallas Fuel gave us was another teaser.
Yeah.
But there is some news. They're building a new LA training facility for their team for this upcoming season. So they're no longer going to be practicing at Blizzard Arena. They're leaving their practice room behind. Um, and I guess the other teaser we got is that they've optioned 6 players of their 9 that are currently on the roster. So 3 players are going to be dropped. I guess I guess Hastro has set us up with a little prediction part of the podcast here. Which 3 players do you think are off the Dallas Fuel roster?
Yeah, and, I've seen some predictions going around. I think probably two of those are relatively easy. I mean, we can probably
Yeah,
um, probably say Chips is probably no more with Dallas, and Coco probably would be the second, which is a shame. You know, both of them really core of that former Team Envy roster.
yeah,
Beyond that, I've seen predictions saying that Mickey would be the third, but I'm not convinced.
yeah,
I'm not convinced about that. You know, we've seen how good he was. You know, especially in stage 4 with his Brigitte play.
yeah.
But also just being a general, positive mental attitude source, sort of for the team. I
Right.
mean, yeah, I can't see Mickey going anywhere.
Very valuable to
Uh,
the team.
yeah. As far as the third one, I mean, looking at this roster, we've got there's definitely still some building for them to do after once we start with those 6, whoever they are. But yeah, probably the third. It makes me wonder if either Taimu or Effect is gonna, for mental health reasons, just decide to step out. Both those players during season 1, at various points had took some breaks, did what they need to do. Um, I wonder if it's going to be one of those two. Uh, just for their own health.
Yeah, they both did have mental health sort of issues. Effect, of course, had to like go back to Korea and couldn't even play. Whereas Taimu stayed in America, but he had some it seemed anxiety issues and panic attack issues, and stuff like that. I know that he had to sit out for a little bit. So both of those do make sense. Both of those would be extremely sad because we know Effect is a very good player. Taimu was once the best like McCree hit scan player in the world, but has sort
He's
of
got a lot of history.
yeah, he has sort of fallen from grace since then. So both of them would make sense to me, even though I think Effect is still a really good player. I think he does have some mental health issues that are hard to deal with, and Taimu makes sense to me too because he just hasn't been performing that well as of late. But I honestly don't know who this third player could be. This third player will be a surprise. That's all. That's all we know.
Yeah.
Um, but Mickey would be so sad, and I know Mickey would immediately get picked up onto another team just because of like the impact he has on a team, and he Dallas Fuel's probably one of the most depressing stories out of the entire Overwatch League last season. I get it's up there with 0
Ooh.
and 40
Yeah, I was
Shanghai.
gonna say which is saying something because we had an 0 and 40 team.
Yeah. And having Mickey on your team was probably like a huge impact towards like the players, especially with Taimu Effect, like 2 of the players who were probably most openly having mental issues, and just all these players that were down in the dumps because they had such high expectations and they were performing so badly. So Mickey's pretty important to the team. All right. Dallas Fuel, we'll find out more next podcast and we'll talk about that third
Hopefully.
player. Yeah, hopefully. We should because believe the re-signing period ends by then. But if they,
Oh, dang.
I don't know if teams are like forced to even say it. You know, that's the thing.
Yeah.
It seems like Overwatch League has been a pretty secretive league so far. You don't have to say like how much you signed your players for and all that. So I don't even know if you're forced to say the roster moves or anything like that until later on. So we could you're right, we could very well not get the news. But I guess I should mention I also agree with you. I think the first 2 are pretty obvious. Chips and Coco are probably gone, which is very sad because they were OG envy. All right, let's move on to some big droppings. We got Boston Uprising. They like let off. They let off. I feel like in the 3-player drops here, you have them dropping Kalios, Avast, and Snow. Any surprises here for you?
Not really. No. I
Yeah,
mean, it's I think this is probably another roster that's going to be doing some sort of redirecting here in this offseason. And so then that always starts with cutting down to a core. So now they're down to 7 players. Um, yeah, so just be interested to see where they go with that.
yeah. I mean, I think the only Avast and Snow didn't really get too much playing time, and it makes sense now that they have Aim God, they have like 5 supports on their team, I believe, when if you include Avast and Snow. So it makes sense they dropped those two. Kalios was like switching time with Note, but it seems like they like Note a lot better. But Kalios has a pretty good Zarya, so I expect Kalios to be picked up, but we haven't really seen what Avast and Snow can do that much. So I don't know if we'll see them continue in the Overwatch League whatsoever. Um, but yeah, nothing too unexpected here. We'll move on to the Los Angeles Gladiators. How's that sound? I Remix, Asher, Silk Thread, all gone. I think this one could possibly be a little bit more surprising. What do you think?
Yeah, this one, I don't even know if surprising is the right word, but it's certainly intriguing, I
Yeah.
think. Especially once you look at the remainder of their team. Which, by the way, if anybody is following along at home wants to check some of these rosters, owlrosters.com, somebody on Reddit is keeping track of this, and they have pretty well updated list of everybody on all of the Overwatch League rosters that they've been updating as things go. But yeah, so remaining on the Gladiators now, Hydration and Surefour, DPS, Shaz and Big Goose on support, and Bishu and Void. They're both listed as flex players. We've seen them usually playing off tank for the team, but again, now that Fissure's gone, now that iRemix is gone, definitely they're looking for a main tank player
Oh yeah.
for sure. So I'm not as familiar with Gladiators Legion. Perhaps they're going to pull up somebody from there. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Their
that's
main
definitely on their wish list.
their main take's
Go ahead.
pretty good down there. It's Panker. He's a South Korean. But he's pretty good. They could definitely pull him up. But yeah, iRemix. It was especially surprising to see them like 2 months ago hyping up iRemix like he is the better choice between him and Fissure.
Yeah, that was part of the Fissure thing, I think, more than anything.
Yeah,
But
yeah. I think it's clear
but
to
yeah,
us.
Silk Thread is interesting too. Obviously, mid-season, season one, he was a trade, I think, or was he just sold from LA Valiant to the LA Gladiators, who've now released him.
Yeah, yeah. I believe he was
So I'll
just.
be interested to see if he gets picked back up, because clearly now 2 teams have seen some value in him,
Yeah,
but where exactly he goes.
Silk Thread and Asher both definitely. The Gladiators found value. I gotta give props to the Gladiators for finding value in almost all of their players. Honestly, you saw like all these names on stage if you look at their roster. But Asher would often switch off with like Surefour, and Silk Thread would be in there pretty often. But it seems like they want to stick with that Hydration Surefour combo, which I think Hydration and Surefour are the best two out of those 4 DPS. Especially Surefour, I find him very valuable because of how flexible he is. But they used Asher and Silk Thread pretty often, so it is a little surprising to see them go. But I think they'll both find other Overwatch League teams as well. All right, New York XL. Some more news on them. They lost Wizard, and now Janice. Janice is gone. Janice, I'll start off with Janice. I think Janice he played pretty often throughout the season, and he was pretty big to the roster overall. I feel like But I remember Janice specifically because I feel like Monty would often just obsess over who was going to play between Janice and was it Meko or Mono or Meko?
I think it's mono is the main take. I
Yeah,
think.
okay, Mono. It was Janice or Mono, and he would Monty on Watch Point preview or or any time he was talking about NYXL, they would often bring up stats between Janice and Mono because New York XL would switch off between those two super often. And I think Monty was often kind of saying like they just need to play mono more because the stats were showing that Janice is not helping them win, and Janice was not doing too well. And I think Janice is he's a good tank overall, but maybe he just didn't fit New York XL's scheme or what they wanted to do too often because when he did go in, the stats did show he just wasn't doing as well as Mono.
Yeah, it is all about predicting the kind of scheming they're doing. It might be trying to look at the dates. But I suppose it might be part of a coaching decision that seems unlikely. But yeah, we'll just have to see
Yep, we will
uh,
see.
exactly the way it goes.
Do you think New York's going to have any more? Do you think they re-signed all the players beside Jonas, or do you think there's going to be more?
I would be surprised if they didn't.
Yeah,
I mean, we're looking at Mako, Mono, Sepiol, Libero, Animo, Jonak, Arc, and Pine. I mean, they all have been doing stuff for the team. I mean,
yeah,
like you said, even Jonas too. Has been a contributor. I mean, it's almost one of those things. If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
exactly.
I think probably their latter season issues were more like based on individual performance rather than ability. They definitely have the ability to do well again season two without a doubt.
Oh yeah, best team. Best. I mean, it's arguable that they were, even though London won it all, it's still arguable that they were the best team last year.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's just hard to drop any of these players. I could definitely just see Jonas be the only one, which would kind of, I don't know if New York's gonna, how many people on XL2 New York can pick up, even how old these people are, but they're XL2 is filled with some very good Overwatch League talent, and I think either way, if they're old enough, they're going to be picked up by somebody. Of course, Nanohana or Flower is old enough now. The big news last year was he was like the best World Cup player or whatever, and he couldn't even be in Overwatch League because he was too young. And now he's old enough, but he doesn't even play as much as Mangachu or Nene, which is pretty insane. I think people are going to be surprised to see that like Flower not only changed his name to Nanohana, but he's just like not as he's not as good as he was before. But XL2 definitely has tons of talent there, and I think it kind of sucks for New York that their entire contenders roster is really good, but their entire current roster is like the best roster in Overwatch right now. So why change anything or why add anything to it even? Like it's just really good. All right, I've got so many tabs open. Okay.
Yeah.
Speaking of so many, Shanghai dropped almost their entire roster.
Just
Wow.
today, in fact.
Yeah, just today. This news came in this morning, 9 a.m. Yeah, they just listed them all out. The Shanghai Dragons has released Altering, Freefill, Five King, Roshan, Shushu, Ado, Sky, and Damon. All gone. See you later. Who does that leave, Joe? Who does Shanghai even have left at this point?
Yeah, so at the moment they've got three on the roster. It's Gregory, Fearless, and Dia are the three that have remained. Um, which even, granted from a roster that went 0 and 40, I mean, I'm a little bit surprised even on the decisions that were made there. I mean, there's speculation that Otto is going to another team, so that might be part of the reason why he was cut. But I mean, he was, you would think one of their better players. Dia Auto, we're getting some work done.
Yeah, they were.
Uh, yeah. Beyond that, I mean, yeah, it's. I mean,
Just do it.
what can you do with Shanghai, really? I
Drop
mean,
it. I mean,
other than cut two-thirds of your squad and try to make something of it. I mean,
try to find something. I mean, every every almost there were tons of people who said just drop everybody. Just get rid of everybody. You went 0 and 40. Just start clean. But as with the players they dropped, I'm not surprised by any of them. Besides Otto, he was good. Of course, Shanghai at first was made up of all people from China, and then they added some South Koreans, which was a good idea. Otto was one of those South Koreans. Gagiri and Fearless are two of those South Koreans, and they're still on the roster. Dia, the only remaining Chinese player. But I also agree with the three they kept. If they were going to keep three, I like these three. I think Dia has always been one of the strong points for Shanghai since the beginning of the season, and I always have thought their DPS has been the best part of their team. I thought the rest of their team was subpar until they ended up getting Fearless and Gigiri. They're pretty good tanks. I thought Dia was pretty good throughout the entire season, and if anyone, I've always thought Shanghai should keep Dia. Um, yeah. What do you think they chose the right three?
I mean, we'll have to see at this point. I would be, I'd be, to try to see how they try to build around those three now. If they, try to go for some sort of established synergy they might have or whatever. But yeah, it'll be interesting.
Yeah, at first Shanghai, I remember, was super adamant, like, this is a Chinese team. We're gonna represent China. And then they were like, our team sucks. We're not gonna do that anymore. And just got South Koreans. Of course, their head coach, Kong, he's also gone. And I believe there was an assistant coach they also got rid of
And
too.
an analyst, yeah.
Okay, an analyst. I mean, just clean house. It makes sense. Just get rid of everybody, honestly. But yeah, it should be interesting, I agree, to see where Shanghai goes after this, especially if this next rumor we're going to be talking about is true. Which I,
Yeah.
I guess we could just jump right into. Our main man, Bench Mob. He's not really our main man, we don't know him. But Bench Mob, um, he came out with he had some leaks. He had some leaks for us this week. We haven't gotten leaks so far from Benchmob. I believe we usually get them. We get some very, I think, Slasher and the Wolf bombs. They're really good leaks. We know they're from trustworthy people. We haven't got too many from Benchmob. He's only a freelance writer. He doesn't work for anybody. So we don't know how reliable he is as a source, but according to him, this was his first tweet on August 31st. He said Overwatch League will get 3 new Chinese teams for season 2, and he said he would release details regarding specific cities once additional information was confirmed. And he said this means more than 6 new expansion teams will be added. Then he said Blizzard is changing Overwatch League regular season format ahead of season 2, down from 40 games to 28. In addition, it'll be broken down into 2 stages into 4. So that's a lot of information right there we just got. Let's talk about the expansion teams first. So what do you think about 3 new Chinese teams and more than 6 expansion teams? Let's go into 3 new Chinese teams first. Actually, what do you think about
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. The three Chinese teams going to four total. We've heard about two. Um, I can understand why that might happen if it was a money thing, if it was a fan base thing. Because I mean, obviously, China, one of the largest countries by population in the world. I mean, I'm sure there's a really giant Overwatch fan base there. Uh, but the logic of trying to presumably build teams out of more Chinese talent um, is interesting to me. And I'm sure there's lots of good Chinese players, but the issue is that you would have thought that they would have been as close as possible to the best of a Chinese Overwatch team um, as they could have gotten with Shanghai Dragons.
Yeah.
Season one Shanghai
Oh, and
did
40.
like you said that was their initial goal, right, to form a Chinese Overwatch team, and we saw how well that worked. And so, like I said, I'm sure there are lots of good players in China and in that region, but to try to make three more uh, new Chinese teams, it concerns me a little bit. I'm not sure how feasible that would be if it is happening, or how likely it might be that it's happening at all.
Yeah. The only reason I agree with you that it would be likely is Blizzard can get big investments from these Chinese investors because of China. In China, esports is big. It's as big as here. It's pretty big. It's they love their recently. I'm a little bit into League of Legends as well, and recently their teams have been competing with the Korean teams every year in Worlds, and their league is arguably the best in the world now. So uh, China has some talent in esports. They love esports, and they I agree with you. They just don't have the Overwatch talent right now. So hopefully, I mean, it's up to these teams. Blizzard can't force, if this is true, Blizzard cannot force these teams to like not only sign Chinese players. Like they're just giving them spots in the league, and these teams can do whatever they want to do. But I will be sad if the teams do only sign Chinese players, and then we just don't end up having a league that's as competitive as it possibly could be. Um, so yeah, if it's happening, it's for money reasons or it's for fandom reasons, and maybe those view counts that we see are like somewhat realistic, even though everyone thinks they're fake. But um, I think the Chinese teams could be very interesting. What do you think about? At first, we thought it was going to be six expansion teams. With this announcement, it possibly could be eight. I guess we don't know. He didn't. Benchmob didn't specifically say how many there would be. He just said more than six. What do you think about adding eight rather than six?
I think either way you have weird numbers, first of all. I mean, 18 or 20 teams, it's still not as nice as, 12 or 16. Um, just math wise, but
Yeah,
but I mean, I think in general more teams is good. So, that's something at least.
I do like 20
Um,
team. I like 20 more than 10 or more than 18 because you can split the 20 into tens.
yeah,
But yeah,
exactly.
go on.
That was about it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll always take more teams over everything. I assume like either even if we had six or if we add eight, that they're going to expand the playoffs to eight teams instead of six. So I don't mind the uneven numbers at all. The more teams the merrier. The only concern I have is how much talent the expansion teams have access to and how far behind these teams will be compared to the already established teams. Um, it will be interesting to see in season two stuff like that. And if you add more expansion teams, then the talent is going to be even more split between those eight teams instead of the six teams. And all of a sudden, you've got sort of less quality rosters going on there. But that's really my only concern with adding a little more teams. I guess as far as the Chinese teams go, I'm pretty confused about that. I guess four total Chinese teams would definitely be interesting. I don't know how much I trust that. But let's talk more. Let's talk more about the format. Um, Blizzard changing the format apparently. Benchmob has told us that the total regular season games are going to be dropped from 40 to 28 per team, And the season 2 will be broken down into 2 stages rather than 4. So I'm assuming 2 stages of 14 games each. As far as format goes, I know we eventually want to discuss this as a topic on the podcast overall because uh, Overwatch League has a very interesting format they're trying out, and I think it would be a very good discussion topic to go over. But we could briefly touch it here. What would you think of the league if we? Do you think 40 to 28 is needed?
Well, I mean, the first season, right, we had 4 stages, with what, 12 matches a week for 5 weeks. So that's 240, 120 matches. 60 times 4 is 240 matches in season 1.
Quick
Uh,
maths.
yeah, exactly. And I think this is going to end up being less if we do 2 stages of 28 because that's only 14 times 20 times 2, which is what, 280. No, so that is a little bit more matches still.
There should be more matches just
Actually,
because of
I don't know what I'm
the.
talking about, but
Well, in general there should be more matches because of the amount of teams being added,
yeah.
and it's
As far as the stage thing, that's probably the most concerning point for me about this particular tweet that we're looking at, just because if we were only going to have 2 stages over the 6-7 month season that we have, in theory that only means one patch update over the 6 or 7 stages or 6 or 7 months that we have. Um, and obviously we had all of these issues. Like you said, I'm sure we'll talk about it later. Patches in between stages and people trying to decide how exactly it would go down. But to only be able to change the patch once through the entire season would be pretty. I would be hesitant to support that. And there's been talk about, well, Blizzard just needs to restructure their patching process to make it match their pro play like some other games do. To only release patches even out to everyone during an interval uh, in their pro gaming scene, so they don't have these kinds of patch issues. But the issue with that then is that there would be only one commercial game patch in 6 or 7 months, which again we also don't want. Um, so that would be my concern there, because obviously they can't update the patch in the middle of the stage for the interest of fairness. Um, so yeah, so that's my concern with this rumor. If this were to go ahead, I would be worried that the infrequency of patch changes and updates would not be good for for what we're going into the league.
Yeah, that's definitely a big problem to look into. There's a bunch of other issues that possibly could happen with 2 stages. The stages are originally put in place because they eventually want it to be like global, and they're gonna split up the stages so that like one stage is happening in a, like, how I imagine it is like, if there are 2 stages, maybe stage 1, everyone in the Pacific Division heads on over to Asia, and everyone plays their games over in Asia, whether it's against the Korean teams or Chinese teams, and everyone's road tripping over there. And while that's happening, the Atlantic Division possibly just stays in North America, and they're playing. They're going to Florida and the East Coast and up to Toronto if there's that team. And then in stage 2, they'd sort of switch off where the Pacific comes back to North America, plays all the California teams and all that. And then in stage 2, the Atlantic heads on over to Europe or whatever and plays all the European teams over there and stuff like that. So that's the original purpose of the stage thing. But overall, the stage thing, I think this can be just a little preview of our discussion next week if we do it. Because we could talk about this for days and we've got more stuff to talk about here. But yeah, that should be a lively discussion next week. I'm excited. But yeah.
And we can interject right now. If you have something to write in about, if you have an opinion, we can
Yeah. or any
read
like
write
part
it
of.
stuff.
Yeah, so it's gonna just be a general discussion about the format in general. Just like let us know any part of the format that you had an issue with. Just email us in. It's ontheflankshow@gmail.com or at our Twitter ontheflankshow, and we'll help fix that part of the format if you want us to. We've got two topics here to talk about here in discussion. I think the first one's going to be like a sort of a shorter discussion. It's about the Diva Nano Cola promotion that's happening now through September 10th. Basically, you get to unlock some Diva cosmetics by winning games in game. I believe it's 9 to get a skin, 3 to get sprays, and then 6. Is it more sprays at 6? What is it at 6?
It's a player icon,
Player
Cola
icon.
player icon.
Player icon. And then you can also, I think the bigger thing to talk about here, possibly, I think that's a little fun thing that they should do more often in game. But I think the bigger thing to talk about is like Siegel and all these streamers that everybody's watching right now, because if you watch streams, you get sprays. I think Siegel like hit 100K viewers during it, and
Yeah, it's almost 120, I thought. Yeah,
oh yeah, and
on the first day. Yeah,
his sub count's just been going through the roof ever since. It's just been a crazy week for Overwatch on Twitch, and they should do this more often, is what I think. um, because I know people talk about Twitch viewership numbers so often. This just like gets Overwatch at the top of Twitch every time it happens. So do it more often, Blizzard. Any thoughts from you on this Nano Cola promotion?
yeah. I mean, it's a great thing to happen. Like we said, now through September 10th, there's like 12 streamers you can watch. Pick up some sprays as well from watching the streams.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's it's sort of like the Pink Mercy event they had a while back. I think before well, yeah, Pink Mercy they also had some sprays you could watch, but the skin you had to buy, because it was
Yeah.
for a charity.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I think it's great. They should yeah, keep doing more of this. Do more charity events too. I know I forget the total that came out of that, but it was hundreds of thousands of dollars I think that they raised for BCRF.
Oh yeah, that was a great
Uh,
promotion right there. Love that.
yeah, and we get Overwatch cosmetics. So
Yeah. And Pink Mercy, one of probably arguably the best skin in the game. It's just really cool, and the story behind it.
yeah,
Yeah. Overall, they should do just more mini in-game events like this, that are just little fun things. Coming from Hearthstone, it reminds me a lot of the Hearthstone little just mini events they have that aren't like too big, but they're just little fun things you can do. Next, Overwatch League All Access Pass. I know this is a topic you mainly wanted to talk about. You can introduce it if you would like. Talking about the overall value of the All Access Pass.
yeah. So just wanted to talk about it just in the idea of was it worth it for this first season? It was introduced partway through. I think that they didn't announce it there at the very beginning of the season.
I think it was stage 2,
Um,
wasn't it?
yeah, something like
Yeah.
that. Sounds right. But yeah, so for $30, they advertised, well, you could get all this premium Twitch content. They had the control center on the Twitch stream. You can go in and watch AMAs with some of the players after matches, and that sort of thing. Um, but the part I want to talk about in particular, in addition, when you buy the All Access Pass, right now, currently, if you don't have the Owl All Access Pass, even though the season's completely over, you can still go to Twitch, pay the $30, and what you'll unlock is 22 skins, an emote, a spray, and a player icon. And that's without all of the Twitch rewards, without all of the cheering rewards, that sort of thing. We'll run through the skins really quickly, just so you can realize exactly how much there is. Um, First of all, you get the home skins for LA Gladiators Mercy and LA Valiant Mercy, Dallas Fuel Brigitte, London Moira, Soul Reinhardt, Fusion, Diva, and New York Excelsior Tracer, in addition to their pack of 12 away skins, which is Boston Diva, Soul Anna, Shanghai Zarya, London Genji, um, that's Dallas Sombra, San Francisco Shock, Lucio, Florida Widow, Valiant Orisa, Gladiators Winston, Fusion Reinhardt, New York Zenyatta, and Houston Junkrat. Plus the three Overwatch League skins that they've got. You can get the gray and orange Overwatch League skin for Soldier, McCree, and Moira. Again, as well as an Overwatch League spray and player icon. Plus the DJ Lucio emote that they came out with here at the very end of the season, which I thought that was kind of an odd addition to put. But so my point of bringing this all up was that yeah, 22 skins and an emote and a player icon and a spray for $30. There's not much more value you could get out of that realistically, even though the season is completely over and none of the Twitch viewership rewards, um, except for the global emotes, I suppose you could keep for next season. Or actually, yeah, you can't keep that for next season. But anyway, I think the value is even still there as they've continued to add stuff through the season, even though the season's over now. What do you think about that?
Yeah, overall, I think it's a pretty good value. Honestly, it might be it might be a great value just for that Orisa away LA Valiant skin. That thing is slick. I've gotten so many compliments on that thing in game. Honestly, it just looks really good with like the white and then like the dark green and the gold, like tints of gold. It just looks really slick, and for some reason, everyone loves it that I play with. But besides that, yeah, there are tons of great. It's a great value. You get a lot of skins out of that, and a lot of cool skins where you can represent your favorite teams. Uh,
Yeah. I do want to point out we're not sponsored by the Overwatch League All Access Pass. Uh, yeah, I do think if you are an Overwatch League fan, maybe didn't invest in it for this first season. I think it's definitely not too late. They said you can get it all the way up and through, or all the way up until the beginning of season two. But yeah, I think it's still definitely worth considering even now after the season is completely done.
I definitely think they will bring it back next season. I thought it was a pretty good value, even though like the command, even I got it at, right when it came out, pretty much. The command center was like not that great, and it was probably worse, but worse to watch than the standard stream. But the after player conferences were really cool. But from a pure skin and cosmetic standpoint, you got a lot of stuff, and that was pretty nice. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, so people were hesitant at the beginning, definitely, when they announced it. But I think if their goal was to try to come up with something that had lots of value, um, and and in different ways, and in theory should sell very well, I think they succeeded as far as that goes. So, yeah, I hope they do it again next season. Maybe learn a thing or two from the control center, try to
Yeah.
change that up a little bit. But
I, I think
um,
they honestly probably just threw something together with the command center at the last second for it.
yeah.
I think they'll definitely be refining that and like giving you more control possibly with that. And who knows, with this many teams next season, we could have like two games happening at once or something like that. And Owl Access Pass allows you to watch sort of. I know Nate Nanzer loves the NFL clearly, and he wants to base this off the NFL. And if you watch the NFL, there's something called the Red Zone channel. And I know he mentioned that he eventually wants a Red Zone channel type thing. And I believe the All Access Pass could bring something like that, which is, if you don't know what the Red Zone channel is, all the NFL games happen at once, basically, on Sundays. So if you don't want to have to just watch one game, you can watch the Red Zone channel, and the Red Zone channel tunes into games at the times they're most important in the Red Zone. So I know Nate Nancer wants something like that. So when the All Access Pass first came out, that's what I thought of when Nate Nancer mentioned that he wanted to do a Red Zone channel eventually. Um, But yeah, besides that, I think another thing actually, I've met a lot of friends in Twitch chat just because I have the Owl All Access Pass like badge next to my name. Like if I'm in a stream that is doesn't have anything to do with Overwatch, like there'll be if I have the badge, some people will like mention like my name and be like, "Hey, you watch Overwatch League too?" So if you have the badge, you can make some friends.
There you go. Yeah, I've gotten some people in my Lucio Ball matches there at the end of the season, saying $30 emote lol, but I mean, it's really a lot more than that. So,
Yeah, it's not you do not just get the emote. um yeah, I think that's it for this week's episode. Lots of great news coming out. I expect more next week. A lot more from the teams who have been silent so far. But yeah, social media. If you want to follow us on Twitter, on our personal Twitters, my Twitter is at JWGeorgeIV. Joe's is at Kirkpatrick_Inc. And then we have a show Twitter. On the Flank Show is our Twitter. We're going to start tweeting from there more. And hopefully you guys tweet at us with some topics you guys want. Our email, if you also want to submit topics via email, send us some videos you find interesting. Send us some pictures if you want, or any sort of fan mail we can read off on this show. You can email us on theflankshow@gmail.com. And of course, you have found this podcast in some sort of way. But if you would like to find it in a different way, we are on theflank.podbean.com. We're also on YouTube. The channel name is John George. I have a little playlist for On the Flank there, or you could probably just search On the Flank. We're also on iTunes if you would like to subscribe to us on there. I know I personally use iTunes as my main podcast app because it's nifty. You can just press subscribe, and you automatically get sent the new episode every single week. If you'd like, you can rate and review us on there as well. And eventually, we will be on Spotify for you Spotify users. We're required to have five episodes before that happens. This is episode 3. We're almost there, Joe.
getting closer.
Yeah.
2 more weeks.
2 more weeks. Yeah, so join us next week. Have a nice Labor Day, everybody.
We'll see you later.
Catchphrase!